All right, so we're going to start with, well, my team, the Boston Celtics. So, as you guys know, I'm not very vocal about it. I don't like to talk about, I don't want to do too much of it. It's kind of like, especially when you guys know where I stand on things. I'm a Clemson student, I'm a Boston sports fan. So, I kind of have to mold the two worlds together and put them away whenever I start talking about this stuff because I want to be able to be I want to be neutral. I want to be able to provide a clear sense of what you guys want to see. I want to be able to articulate my opinions in a way where you guys go, oh, he's just a homer, or he's just this, he's that. I don't want to be like that to you guys. So in this section, I'll try not to be too much of a fanboy, but boy, was I happy on Sunday night. So how the Celtics got here, I want to start in summer. So it was a crazy, crazy summer because Brad Stevens announced that he was basically retiring from coaching. He was done with it after the bubble. The just toll that it took on him those last 2 years were just insanity for him. He could not really just I don't think it's not necessarily that he could take it. I think he was clearly capable of coaching again in a quality manner. He just wanted to move on to a different type of role. And he became the president of basketball operations for the Boston Celtics. And it really took off from there. He made trades for Al Horford. The roster went through an unbelievable amount of shuffling. They signed guys like Dennis Schroeder, Josh Richardson. They brought back the guy, Al Horford. I'm just like, and in the middle of I think it was August, everyone was like, what in the heck is Boston doing? This is a team that had a lot of question marks going into the season. They hired a new coach, Ime Udoka, who comes from the Greg Popovich coaching tree. So there was a lot of good, but there was also a lot of question marks. Where was this team going? How long would it take for this team to get back to a place like the Eastern Conference Finals in the bubble? The Heat were getting better. The Sixers were getting better. The Bucks had just come off an NBA championship. The pressure was on, and the Jays were only going to get older, and in turn, only going to get more expensive. And it was not the best start ever. I remember watching, it was an overtime loss to the Knicks where Jaylen Brown had a fantastic game. Tatum was fine. And the roster just looked incomplete. It looked like it had a lack of direction. In the beginning, they started 18-21. And the rumors, legitimate rumors about breaking up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, that this duo couldn't play together. You had guys like Marcus Smart calling them out. And they had to really reinvent themselves. They just started to bring everything into the paint with Robert Williams. They had this death lineup of a sense. Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Robert Williams. They make 35-year-old Al Horford switch onto guards too. Like everybody has a role to play in defense. I can't necessarily repeat it, but Jason Tatum said it on an interview on the Volume podcast network with Colin Cowherd in his interview with Draymond Green. The guys on this team give a you-know-what about playing defense. And they said when you got guys like 35-year-old Al Horford switching onto guards and doing well, there's no excuse for a guy like year 2 or year 3 to be able to do some of that stuff. So the culture that Ime wanted to bring in, he wanted Jason and Jaylen to be more of playmakers instead of trying to do it themselves, spread out the ball, distribute. This team took an evolution, an unprecedented evolution. It was one of the craziest turnarounds in NBA history. And still, I think the consensus is that Boston was a team that's probably had a schedule that had a lot of good things about them, but they were going to run into somebody eventually that was going to catch them off guard, that was going to catch them on a bad day. And some days they did, some days they didn't. Boston ended up with the second seed in the Eastern Conference where they played the Brooklyn Nets, where a lot of people thought they've met their match. Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. Ironically, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving left the Warriors and the Celtics respectively. And now both those teams are in the finals years later. Interesting to think about. So this team went through a lot of roster shuffles, added pieces like Derek White, moved off pieces like Langford, Schroeder, Jabari Parker, Enes Kanter, Josh Richardson. Think about that. And even Joe Johnson was on this team at one point. ISO Joe was on this team. The Celtics found a way. They found a way to make it work. It started with a buzzer beater from Tatum in game 1, and it's come all the way down to a game 7 in Miami. Off the heel of Max Strus and the missed 3 of Jimmy Butler, the Boston Celtics are here. So what do I like about Boston this series? Obviously, you have to start with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. What they've been able to do this series, when they're on. They're pretty much some of the best scorers in the NBA. The things that they're able to do with the basketball, it's unbelievable. It's hard to explain. It's kind of like a magic trick in a way. And we're going to talk about magic with the Warriors really soon. But what they've been able to do, they've been able to step up in terms of leadership, in terms of moving the ball. That is what I like about when Jason and Jalen are on, they are unstoppable. And one of the things that you have to mention is Al Horford. One of the things that Al Horford does in a lot of ways, similar to Draymond Green, is that's that anchor. He's not going to give you 25 points a night. He's not going to give you this crazy, crazy dunk or this crazy three. He's there. He's stable. He brings that stability, that presence to kind of calm everybody down when things aren't going a certain way. Marcus Smart does that in a way too on his defense, and occasionally offensively, Marcus Smart can give you 20, 22. But what Horford did for this team, there's an infamous clip of him like, okay, Giannis just obliterated him on a dunk. And Horford's like, okay, that's fine. Let's go for it. And Horford, 2 quarters later, does the same thing and won. Boston wins a crucial game for Milwaukee and ties up the series. It's those things that Al Horford does. It's the little things. It may not pop up on the stat sheet, and his little goofy face may not pop up on that stat sheet. But what that kind of does, how do you react to certain moments, defines a playoff run. And I think it did in large part that way. That's what I love about Boston. They're stable. They're here. They've got their leadership. They've got this culture that they finally bought into. I love that about them. What I don't like and often frustrated by, sometimes I think Boston is a little too reliant on this drive and kick, and they get a little sloppy with the ball. Mainly Jason Tatum, mainly Jaylen Brown. It is like a double-edged sword, the side of the same coin. One way you're like, oh, great. And another way you're like, you just don't even want to watch. There was a game in game 3 in this series against Miami where Boston had 23 turnovers. And I think the points off turnovers were ridiculous. It was something like that. I don't know if it was 23 for sure, but it was something insane. And so Boston has to take care of the basketball. It's the same with Golden State too. The way they play their offense, it's prone to turnovers. And when turnovers happen, it's easier for the opposing offense to be able to score. And Boston struggled massively with games and certain moments playing tight, they kind of shrink in big moments. There was game 7 where they had an 11-point lead within a minute, little over a minute left, and it was gone in an instant. Boston's got to take care of their end game situation better. They got to take care of the basketball better. And they overall just need to be able to move the ball, play their game, and they'll be fine. There's a lot to like with Boston. There's an incredible turnaround. Regardless of what happens, I think this is a team that can get to the finals consistently, but we're going to see. They're now going to be running into the 3-headed monster of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green with a couple extra heads of like Kuminga, Otto Porter, Gary Payton, Jordan Poole, like all the fun guys of this monster that is Golden State. Golden State reinvented themselves, but they're back, and let's talk about them.